Okay, let's do this. Try to review the season and see everything we've learned from this NBA season. Let's do it.
Saying I don't have a problem with people clicking up. All I'm saying is that's what I'm not gonna do.
Key news from the NBA. Adrian Wojnarowski is the man behind the news.
Jay, blockbuster deal that lands the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis Antetokounmpo, All-NBA guard Damian Lillard.
Now, before the season started, the Bucks traded for Damian Lillard. This was a blockbuster trade. This was big, okay? A lot of people were waiting for this trade to happen, but they didn't think the Bucks were going to be the team to trade for him, right? You obviously had the Miami Heat who were going to do it, but turns out Pat Riley either had cold feet or was just never interested in trading Tyler Hero for Damian Lillard. This honestly might be one of the dumbest things I've seen, but hey, maybe the Heat can surprise us and somehow make the finals with their overachieving ass team again.
We'll use the power of friendship.
Well, the Bucks, though, they had a team that looked very good to start the season on paper. I mean, think about it. The Greek Freak with Dame Time. This would be an exquisitely great duo to watch. I know. This is making you salivate at the thought of a Giannis Dame PNR, right? You were wondering, how was Adrian Griffin going to utilize Dame when it came to offensively giving him his set plays? Not just that, but you also had guys like Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton that could help with the spacing. Obviously, give it to Chris and let him shoot. Problem is, though, the Bucks, it didn't look so good to begin the season. Obviously, Malik Beasley had a great stroke. I mean, he was stroking that thing. He gave you 45% three-point shooting to start off the season, the first 20 games or so. This guy was lethal, right? Putting up over 10 points a game. This is a good number to have as a starting role player, right? A guy that's actually playing starting minutes, playing almost 30 minutes a game. This is great stuff to see. Obviously, the free throws, he doesn't attempt too many free throws, so that's probably why it's so low. But Milwaukee, their defense was the biggest problem. They were allowing teams to score so many more points than they usually were allowing last season, and it was a glaring difference up to this point. And obviously, people look at Jrue Holiday and his impact from last season and see that he's not there anymore, and so that means the Bucks, they lost out on that defensive impact in the backcourt. A lot of people were instantly pointing their finger at Dame, saying that, bringing him in and Malik Beasley, obviously, that just doesn't make a defense, a backcourt that is going to actually win a championship. Now, this Bucks team, it wasn't just the defense from the backcourt and the perimeter. It was also at the rim. They were actually struggling to actually contain guys at the rim. Last season, they had the second best opponent field goal percentage at the rim. And now this season, they were starting off with the third worst opponent field goal percentage at the rim. Okay, and they were thinking, did Brook Lopez regress? Did Giannis suddenly just hit a wall? No, and no. What most likely was the case was that Adrian Griffin's schemes just did not fit with the play styles of certain guys like Brook Lopez especially, and even Giannis to a certain extent was not feeling much of Blake. Did I say Blake Griffin? Oh my God. Adrian Griffin's defensive schemes. I mean, you would see him at times, talking to the coach, telling him, yo, don't sub me out, bro. I want to stay in the game. And he was insistent on that. You could clearly see Giannis being frustrated. And yeah, Adrian Griffin ended up getting fired, but we'll get into that later on in the episode.
Let's get this shit. Let's top of the morning, top of the morning, top of the morning.
A season ago, that changes with this guy.
This is the impressive thing. At 7'4", the step back James.
This motherfucker Wemby was a problem. This guy Wemby had an insane preseason to start. It was really the highlights that we were seeing. Like, some of these highlights were crazy. I mean, just look at this. Wemby running with Jeremy Sohan and just this Euro step into the dunk. This dude, it looked like had a Euro step dunk from the free throw line. Let me see this real quick. He gets the ball up at the 3-point line, gathers, right? Yeah, starts off his Euro step at the free throw line. Look at this crap. How is this possible? Look at how much ground he covers with 1-2 steps, starting off at the 3-point line where he received the ball and he dunks it right here. This is insanity. Wemby he was a freak of nature. Okay, so Wemby steals the ball here and then puts it under Reggie Bullock's legs. This has to be witchcraft. I'm telling you right now, bro. How is a 7'4" player doing this? I'm not gonna lie to you, Aaron Holiday, what were you expecting to happen here, bro? Were you just gonna expect Wemby to give you the ball? Like, this is ridiculous. Wemby's preseason just had us all in shock. It was amazing.
Pointers last night in their win against Miami as Trent fouls Levine, and Levine comes up hobbled. Right.
Boy ain't no way, boy. Boy ain't no way, boy.
It took just one game for these Chicago Bulls to already be in a panic mode. They lost by 20 plus points against the Thunder, and they had a players only meeting because of this. A players only meeting, bro. After game 1 of the season, they were already panicking at the wazoo. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. This trio, I can't believe I'm saying this. This trio of Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic, the most square face you could think of. This guy, oh my God, I can't believe this team is still a thing. Why are they still running this trio as a team? I don't understand it. Lonzo's been hurt, obviously. He hasn't been able to play at all this season. And another thing we learned from this Bulls team, they're just as bad as they were last season. And they're obviously a middling team, so they're not going to be a lottery team. They're going to be the playing team, so they're going to be at the bottom of the lottery, so they're going to be in purgatory hell. Let's ignore them because let's get back to Wemby, man. I just want to talk about, you're going to see a lot of Wemby in this video. I'm just going to let you know that right off the gates. His offensive bag from the restricted area was already showing to begin the season. Not just that, but Rudy Gobert, you could see here, fellow French mates showing off their defensive prowess, right? It's not just Wemby, but Rudy Gobert had a great defensive season in Minnesota. And you could see it right off the gates. That guy, we'll get more into it, but Rudy Gobert, man, he redeemed himself when it came to the whole, trade in 2022 with him and 5 players being involved and like 4 draft picks and whatnot. It was insane. But that trade, hey, Tim Connelly looks smarter and smarter by the day. But Wemby, we got to talk more about him because he's really the more interesting Frenchman out of this tandem. 38 points. It took him 5 games to get to 38 points as his career high. This dude Wemby is a monster. I couldn't believe what I was seeing against Kevin Durant nonetheless. It was one of those, yeah, you had to be there type moments. He started off his career, first 5 games, averaging 20 plus points a game and averaging 2 plus blocks per game, right? Only other player to do this, or at the very least, he's the first player to do this since Shaquille O'Neal in his rookie season when he started off his first 5 games averaging almost 26 points a game and almost 3.5 blocks a game. Shaq was just a world beater out there. And Wemby was looking like he was going to replicate some of Shaq's defensive and offensive prowess to begin his career. Amazing stuff from Wemby. I'm not going to lie to you.
Step back 3. Oh, I see you looking at me.
Jordan Poole is the new James Harden. You remember when James Harden left OKC and he got to goddamn Houston and got right at it?
Absolutely.
Man, this the Jordan Poole show.
Much later.
Flexing champ shit, but you ain't bringing champ environment in here.
Right.
You learned this in Golden State, nigga? No. Niggas like this don't belong in our league, bro.
Damn, in the league?
He does not belong in the league. He's the head of a team, P. Nah, I don't want my son under no nigga like that. You see how he talking to teammates? Shut up, my nigga. This is my team. I got it.
Oh boy, this conversation is a tough one to have. Obviously, Wizards fans, they were hoping for better with Jordan Poole. They were thinking they were going to get the 41-point game that they had in the preseason. Jordan Poole had a crazy game in the preseason, 41 points against the Knicks. But again, that's the preseason. You can't really take much from the preseason. Jordan Poole's stats did not look so good to start off the season. He obviously had some bad games, but he shot 30%, almost less than 30% from the free-point line. That is not good. Attempting 6 over 6 threes a game and you're shooting that badly, bro. I'm telling you what, averaging 15.6 points a game, very far from the 25-ish points per game that many people predicted he was going to average this season. It's really sad, but Jordan Poole only has himself to blame. And obviously, being in the Wizards, you knew he was going to get a lot of the touches. You knew, Jordan Poole, he was going to have a chance to showcase how good he was. And he just wasn't that guy. Now, I know what people will say. Ever since he got benched, I mean, look at those numbers, guys. I know the last 4 games from the time I'm recording this, he had like like what, 25.5 points per game, 8 assists, 4 free-pointers made. So he was shooting it at a 40% clip. His free throw shooting was always great. That was never a problem. But this is the longest streak of 20-point games he's had this season. Four straight. This is the best he's looked this season, and it's to end off the season. We'll get more into, you know, other players that have ended off the season looking great and promising. Because look, yeah, he's averaging more points. He's averaging, you know, he's shooting better from the free-point line. But again, this is not 25 points per game good, right? This is the last, what, 10 or so games that I've picked out, last 13 games, 14 games. And Jordan Poole's numbers just aren't that impressive to me, honestly. These are the games that he started after getting benched, right? He was getting benched for a couple of games, and it looked like that was promising for him. He was actually, you know, getting himself acclimated to the team more, it seemed like. But after then, he got the starting job again, and you know, he's doing better than he did to start the season off. But honestly, even he could tell you, bro, he's not having a good time over there in Washington. He's not having a good time, and it's sad to say, but this was a failed season for Jordan Poole. A season where we thought we were gonna see a glimpse of what he could be, a glimpse of what like James Harden did in Houston. Oh, he was gonna become that guy for Washington. 25 plus points per game. Oh, this might be one of those guys that, you know, breaks out into a star. Well, now we just have to think, what's gonna happen with Jordan Poole next? Are the Wizards gonna trade him for pieces that they need? I don't know. The Wizards are in tanking mode as well, so you know, maybe Jordan Poole is gonna be useful for a couple seasons, you know, to drive up the stock of certain players. Danny Avdija has looked better this season, so he's improved. So maybe they use Jordan Poole as a you know, little, you know, trade stock. You see the Robin Hood sponsorship here. Yeah, they're probably gonna try to, you know, raise up the stock of Jordan Poole and other players. We'll see what the Wizards do, bro. I don't got much to say about them.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I would never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
James Harden. Yeah, I'm just gonna call him James. This guy James was telling us that Daryl Morey was a liar, right? This guy Daryl Morey, he's the biggest liar there is, right? And a relationship that once looked fruitful was now looking like it was gonna fall apart real quick, okay? The Sixers had to find a trade partner for James Harden because they needed to get rid of his ass. He did not want to be there, and obviously you could tell Daryl Morey was not going to pay him the money that he thought he was owed. So he ends up getting traded, and he goes to the Clippers. Welcome to LA, they say. James Harden, how are you doing? And then James Harden has that famous press conference, right?
I'm not a system player. I am a system.
The beard, you're not the system, you're the problem.
Well, the only problem with that is that his system was not working out to start off. They lost 5 straight games with him, you know, playing, and the first 5 games really. And this was bad. This was really bad. It didn't look good for them. James Harden, was it his fault? Was he being scapegoated throughout this season because of this? Was he actually the rightfully scapegoated person this season? James Harden, he looked awful. He looked bad. He looked washed. He really looked washed. But as you'll see later in the video, it was really just a case of him having to, you know, work himself back into shape, and obviously the Clippers having to, you know, dial up the chemistry when it came to, you know, Harden playing with Kawhi and PG and Russell Westbrook off the bench. So really, that's what it was, in my opinion. But you'll see later in the video why I say this. Let's talk about the leaps that were made by some players like Scotty Barnes, my franchise player. I'm a Raptors fan if you didn't know. Yeah, Scotty has been, you know, he's had a great season, honestly. The best season of his career so far. A leap that's been made. That 30-point, 11 rebound, 6 assist game was against the Spurs. This was game 6 of the season. And Scotty with a nice step back here to tie the game. This was a clutch game from Scotty. One thing that sucks though is that he was just shy of averaging over 20 points a game. And it's sad because he was right there. Like if he had played the whole game where he hurt his hand and actually scored his average, he would have gotten that 20 points per game, no problem. But it is what it is. He's an all-star this year. I'm so happy that he was an all-star. And speaking of all-stars, another player that made their leap, I gotta talk about it. Yeah, boy, Tyrese Maxey, man. One of the most wholesome players in this league. This guy made made a leap that is just quite stunning. Obviously, he might win Most Improved Player of the Year award, right? That's how much of a leap he's made. A guy that was already scoring, you know, a good amount of points, went up in points by, I think, over 6 points, right? Which is not something that a lot of players can say when they improve so drastically. This guy's points per game went up so high, and he had 50-point games after 50-point games. This guy had 3 50-point games in the season, bro. Like, that just lets you know he's like that, and he's going to be a force in this league, man. Obviously, playing alongside Embiid makes things easier for you, right? Now, obviously, he was an all-star as well. Another player that I think should have been an all-star, but that made a leap that is arguably most improved, if not for the fact that he got hurt during the season, just like Scotty. Yeah, Alperen Sengun, Alpi, man, that guy, he's made a leap that I think most people need to talk about more. And what sucks is because he was in a stacked conference in the Western Conference, he wasn't even an all-star this season, right? Another player that you can argue is one of the best players in this draft class along Scotty Barnes, right? You can argue those two are the top, right? They've clearly shown their improvements. They've shown that, you know, they're star players in this league. Alpi is one of those players. He could play, make, he could pass the ball, all right? I know people, you know, they say those words and it basically means the same thing, but he could do all those things at a very good level, right? Van Vliet's there to assist him too. He's been looking way better with Van Vliet as well, playing alongside him, right? And that's just what Van Vliet does when he plays alongside a big. He makes them better too, right? The thing with Alpi, like, this motherfucker has a sexy game. Look at the pass. Oh, he going in. Look at this. Over Wemby, bro. And then here he's posting him up, going in. Wee-hee. Bro, and look at this. Woo, he goes inside, shimmies, bang, just dunks it over him. The fact that he scored 45 on Wemby, right? I'm pretty sure, besides Embiid scoring 70, I'm pretty sure that's the most points anybody scored on Wemby in the game. I mean, maybe Jokic. Giannis had 44, I know that, but maybe Jokic had more. It's insane. Alpi is one of them guys. He's one of them. Yeah, this Western Conference was stacked this year, but there was a lot of new faces, right? The Nuggets, number 2 seed this season. OKC, number 1. Obviously, they had the tiebreaker with the Nuggets, having won the season series 3-1 this season. Yes, the Thunder have beat the Nuggets 3 times in the season series. That's quite interesting. And also winning the division as well. Minnesota right there, 3rd seed. What's crazy is the top 3 seed are all from the same division, not just that, but these 2 teams right here, they made such leaps this year. Pretty impressive. Not too long ago, 3 years ago, you would have this OKC team being a rebuild team. You would, you know, tag this team as a rebuild technically, because that's what it was. It was a rebuild, and it was so quick. 22-50. They had a 22-50 record, and then as they progressed throughout the years, 24 wins the next season, and then 40 wins. They're in the play-in, but lose in the second game, and then 57 wins, number 1 seed. They locked that up. That's beautiful. The Minnesota Timberwolves defensively is where they made their leap. They made their jump at that level. Number 1 defensive rating, only team with a defensive rating lower than 110. Their defensive rating, obviously, we know a large part is due to Rudy Gobert's rim protection, right? And offensively, you could see here, Minnesota is pretty low. They're a below average offensive team, and really a lot of their success comes from defensive end. But look at OKC, number 3 in offensive rating. And I don't know if you noticed, they're also number 4 in defensive rating. They're one of 2 teams alongside the Celtics that have a top 5 offensive and defensive rating. Their net rating is also pretty high up. Look at this, number 2 in net rating for that reason. Minnesota is not far off, even though their offensive rating is, you know, a bit below average. And thank goodness, man, this narrative can finally die. The Timberwolves made the worst trade in history. No, they did not. You were just a hater. I made a video, I remember this, on my main channel, talk about Rudy Gobert was being scapegoated. Obviously, comments were saying I agree. There were comments that said, you are just a Rudy lover, you're delusional, but I was right. Vindicated Rudy Gobert is. He's about to win his 4th DPOY, and there's nothing you could do about it, baby.
Of the year. Ooh. I would have to say, you know, Chet has played great. But I would have to still say Wembanyama.
This was a close race. This was a close race at one point in the season. I know. Shocking to say, but at one point in the season, this was the numbers that they were putting up. And really, what was the argument for Chet, right? He was getting some buzz around this time earlier in the season, was the record. His team was actually, you know, playing above expectations. And a good reason why is because of him, right? Defensively, right? You see the top guys in defensive rating. And for the whole season, Chet Holmgren is, you know, amongst guys that have played over 25 minutes a game and that have played at least 56 games. Obviously, that's a very specific criteria. But you got Chet up there with, a lot of guys. Obviously, Cat and guys like Mike Conley. They're being sucked in with Rudy Gobert. But OKC's defense is being anchored by Chet, right? That's why I'm really talking about Chet here, because he's anchoring their defense, and he's actually been doing a good job anchoring that defense to where they're top 5 in defensive rating, like I said earlier in the video.
If I was looking at the Rookie of the Year, I would say that the one thing that has to be taken into account is that, like you said, everyone's compromised their game a bit. You've had to be a leader. Everyone's had to be a leader because there's no real OG, and you guys have a real opportunity to win a championship. And that has to play into the Rookie of the Year thinking, right? Obviously,
honestly, this whole conversation, we're starting to lose what the Rookie of the Award even means at this point. If the Rookie of the Award is meant to be given to the best team, you should call it a different award. Best Rookie on the Best Team award. That's what it should be, right? Chet, as good as his numbers look, Wemby is just having a way better season. And I'll get more into his season later on in the video, because that's really where I want to tap into that. But Chet, a lot of his argument is efficiency, because he's way more efficient than Wemby's, and numbers, especially early in the season, he was way more efficient than Wemby. But also, his argument is, his team is looking good, and a good reason why is because of him. Even though he's playing with a top 5 player, arguably in Shea, an MVP candidate in Shea, who's probably going to be third in this year's MVP ladder, which we'll get into as well during the video. I think Chet's argument is a bit flawed, with the Rookie of the Year award being that it should be the best rookie that should win the award, which is, I think, Wemby by not a mile, but closer to a mile than it is to not, right?
Charlotte Hornets select Brandon Miller.
I remember this. Even I was, sad for the Hornets fans. And I'm friends with a Hornets fan. He edits this video, by the way. That he was sad too. I remember we have the clip of him reacting to Scoot not being picked second and Miller being picked. And he was crying. He was like, no! I wanted Scoot. And obviously, we all have egg in our faces because of it, right? Scoot, to be fair to him, he's a point guard, right? He's a small guard. So it's harder a lot of times for smaller guards to get adjusted to the NBA, right? So the learning curve, not just for smaller guards, but for like smaller players in general, it's going to be steeper, right? And especially with what we've seen from the Ignite, I'm pretty sure he was 17 when he was playing in the Ignite and 18 when he got drafted into the NBA, if not 19 years old, whichever which. He's young. He's very young, and he has a lot of time in his hands to get better. But for right now, the Charlotte Hornets made the right pick in picking Brandon Miller, right? The guy that came out of Alabama. He had a horrific, and I mean horrific, March Madness tournament. And even that didn't deter the Hornets from picking him, right? They really picked him, because of the fit alongside LaMelo, which is a good sign if you're a LaMelo fan, because the Hornets are thinking, their future will be involved LaMelo, right? They won't want to trade him because they see something in him. Despite the injuries, we'll talk more about that too. LaMelo's injury history, man, it's sad. It's really tough. And I just think Brandon Miller has put up an impressive rookie season, and especially me as well. I was thinking that Scoot was better. I still think Scoot can be better in his career, but right now, you got to give it to Brandon Miller. He shut us all up. All the people that were doubting him, and I was one of them. He shut us all up, and he's, by all accounts, third in the rookie ladder, right? A lot of people have him third in the rookie ladder. Maybe they have Jaime third, but obviously later in the season, Brandon Miller made a bigger push for that, to be in the top 3 in the rookie year ladder. And Scoot, I will say this, even though his numbers don't look as good as people would expect them, he still had a good, late push to the season. I know Brandon Miller has better numbers overall, better shooting numbers too. Just look at the last couple of games of the season, right? Before he got hurt. Sorry, not before. After he came back from that injury. He's shooting 35% from deep, right? Averaging 16 points, 7 assists. He's actually been looking more comfortable in the NBA, right? Let's actually get more specific. Let's get the last 5 games, just to be exact, just to see how he looked to end the season. 20 points a game on 40% 3-point shooting with 7 threes attempted a game. You see, he's getting more comfortable with the NBA, even though he's averaging 5 turnovers in that stretch. I know. People don't like that. He's averaging almost 10 assists though, right? That's like a 2, less than 2, but just under 2 assist to turnover ratio. Honestly, Scoot is gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine in this league. He's getting really comfortable, and I think next year, either it's gonna be next year or the 3rd year, we're gonna see a leap from him. We're gonna see a much better version of what Scoot is, and that might make us rethink who's better between the two, right? Right now, it's Brandon Miller, but I could definitely see Scoot creeping up and getting up there when it comes to his game being, because he's an athletic kid. I don't know if you guys know how athletic he is based on the season that's happened in Portland. I think he's going to turn heads next year or the year after. whichever which. I hope for the best though.
Well, you can tell everybody.
This tournament was a fantastic success. It was amazing. Obviously, the Pacers being like the star team, the team that everyone rooted for, because they were actually playing great. And the views, the court was a bit ugly to watch, you know? It's an eyesore. But I think that's what the NBA was going for with these courts. Just to catch your attention, to make it a different event. Technically, they're still regular season games, except for the final game. But the NBA wanted to make it different. They wanted to make this an event, right? So it was on Tuesdays and Fridays for the group stages. And then for the knockout stages, it was on specific days, right? And it was a fun format. I actually hope the NBA adds more tournaments. You know, it just makes the season more worth watching. I think that's what the NBA was pushing for, and they got their reward for it. Viewership up 55%. I can't speak English. On ESPN, bro. It's beautiful seeing the viewership go up around this time of year, November, December. That should be dead time in the NBA, right? NFL season is ending, so playoff matchups are being talked about. More attention should be focused on NFL content, but the NBA making that pivot. Let's see how this goes. And it went well. It went fantastic.
You actually could trust Anthony Davis right now. Anthony Davis is shutting a lot of the critics up with his production and his availability. Right now, Anthony Davis is playing like a top 5 player in the league. He looks healthy. He looks athletic.
Oh, okay, Kendrick. Okay, Kendrick. You can make your point without, adding into it and exaggerating how great Anthony. I'm not saying he's not top 10. I'm just saying top 5 is pushing it, right? But I'm glad Kendrick Perkins pointed this out. I think this was back in January or December. He's been available. 76 games played this season, right? People call him street clothes and all that stuff. And I was memeing on that too. Charles Barkley, notable for saying he's street clothes. Oh, he always gets hurt. He's glass. In his career, this is the most games he's played in a season. 76? Bruh. AD, you get the flowers. And I think as a community, we need to give AD more flowers, okay? Because this guy has proven to us that he's not street clothes. He's broken the narratives that were put out about him. He's actually reliable. He's actually been consistent. All in all, we should give AD his flowers because the slander was crazy. And the praise needs to be as loud as the disrespect. 41 points and 20 rebounds in the NCAA tournament final. This guy was on it, bruh. We need to give him his flowers. Oh boy. This is a tough one for me to talk about because I made a video about how fat Zion is. Basically, I titled the video, "The Zion Williamson Problem Keeps Getting Worse." And obviously, it got 500K views. It was a good video for me. I ate off of that video as much as Zion did. And I gotta say, he has proved us wrong. He has shut us up. Even though I wasn't criticizing him too much like Stephen A was, I was really just relaying the fact that Zion, this was the biggest game of his career at this point in the NCAA tournament. And he didn't show up to play. He was ass. Not just that, he looked out of shape, lethargic. I mean, there was a press conference around that time where he was just breathing heavily. It was like he was tired off of what? Just talking? That's how it looked like. But I'm pretty sure he practiced before the press conference, and that's why he was breathing heavily. Just to show you, the conditioning wasn't there, and he's picked it up since. And I know when I made this video about Zion, I said, it would take a while for him to score 36 points like he did against the Timberwolves. Even though I think he scored 36 points multiple times after that during the season. So I was proven wrong then. It didn't take that long, right, as to what I said. But he scored 40 points in the playing game before he got hurt, obviously, which is a shame. He had a great game, and I think nobody should take that away from him.
Winning. And the Pistons losing streak.
Proved to be a bit of a silver lining for the Pistons. The 117 they give
violation and 9.7 left. Oh boy, here we go.
This Pistons team, man. Womp, womp, womp. They're so garbage. Not just that, but they were historically garbage. It was actually sad. 27 games lost in a row, and they were playing the Celtics. As I'm skipping over the video, you can see here. They were playing the Celtics, and yeah, it was a close game. They ended up losing the game, and this would be obviously a record 28th straight loss during the regular season. It technically tied an NBA record, as it says here, but that record that they're talking about is not for a single season. It's for basically a stretch of games, and it could encompass 2 seasons. So in between 2 seasons, the record is 28. But in the single season, I'm pretty sure it was like 26, which the Pistons had beat. It's quite crazy that my Raptors lost to this team, though. I'll never forgive them, this Pistons team. Oh, boy.
Vortex! James, I noticed that you think you can sing.
Yo, dog, why is Bones Highland holding him like that? But nah, this was an amazing moment. in the game. We had a close-up of James Harden's beard for no reason other than just to have the close-up there. It was quite interesting. This game was marvelous. Not just that, the Clippers were looking marvelous around this time, proving to a lot of the doubters that they could actually work with James Harden leading them in their offense. Now, let me say this. The Clippers, they were on the great streak, right? They were hot. They were looking good after losing 6 straight. Actually, is that 7? No, 6 straight, right? And then they started winning and winning and winning, and then they started losing again. But then those are the good teams, so you could, to be fair, you could give them the fact that they lost to those teams. But then they start winning again, and then they lost to the Lakers. Oh no, they win again, and then they lose to Minnesota. These are good teams. Again, they win again, and then they lose to Cleveland. All right, but they did beat the Celtics the game before. Like, they were looking good. They had stretches of games where it's like they looked unstoppable.
New York is fucking back. I'm with your bitch and I ran out of condoms. Started fucking a road, no problem.
Their defense, probably the most versatile defender in the NBA.
And Anunoby on cue with the defensive play, and he jams it home.
The Raptors did it. My Raptors did it. They finally pulled the plug on whatever the fuck they were doing with Siakam, OG, and Scotty Barnes. It was quite a weird team, but now finally they're in better places. Siakam in Indiana, OG in New York, and let's first break down OG's Knicks tenure, which was quite weird. He had the elbow injury, but the first couple of games he was playing, they were looking unstoppable. I mean, they were looking quite interesting as a whole. Second in win percentage around that time, second in defensive rating since the trade happened, as opposed to 20th before the trade. They have first in, obviously their defensive numbers just skyrocketed with OG in the lineup. Blocked numbers, even deflection numbers went up. Opposing efficient, effective field goal. It was quite the show, and their net rating exploded as well. It was just bursting onto the seams, you know what I mean? OG Anunoby was all worldly for them. It was great. He was providing a role that was desperately needed by the Knicks. And Siakam, let's get to that trade because, well, the Raptors, they didn't get as much as, they should have for Siakam. Siakam is worth more than what the hell. This is Bruce Brown, Jordan Noir. No offense. Kira Lewis Jr., I'm sorry. Not many people know who you are, all right? Jordan Noir, I've seen him because of Milwaukee days. Him never passing the ball. Yes, by the way, he doesn't pass the ball that often. But I will say he's probably passed the ball more in this Raptors team than he's ever passed in his career. Okay, you'll be surprised actually. And the trades, the picks that were traded were 2024 picks. There was only one pick that was outside of 2024 that was traded, and that was a 2026 pick that was obviously a first rounder as well. I just want to highlight a few things that Siakam did in March that I think not a lot of people, at the very least what I've seen, not a lot of people talk about. Right, offensively, Siakam has actually been a great boost to them, especially when Halliburton hasn't played or Halliburton's been, on minutes restriction. So 21, 9, and 3 assists. Believe it or not, this is pretty low for Siakam, especially over the last couple of years. He's actually usually averaging more assists. But the thing is, with this current Pacers team, the way they're playing, they need Siakam to score the ball way more than he's accustomed to, right? And Siakam's ability to drive the ball and shoot the ball, like Rick Carlisle says, is really what changes the complexion of this offense for them. His 9 rebounds a game is I think it's a career high, if not his 3rd career high in a month. Bruh, Siakam hasn't been doing this for the Raptors this season, averaging 9 rebounds. Apparently he's averaging 2 offensive rebounds a game, and which is a career high over a full season if you were to average 2 offensive rebounds. You know what? Since I talked about the Knicks and Pacers, let's talk about their point guards, okay? The star players. Superstardom, okay, is what these guys have shown us this season. Halliburton, especially earlier in the season. Jalen Brunson, especially later in the season. It's quite a contrast, but obviously Halliburton was due to the fact that he got hurt in January, right? But their numbers, before the All-Star game, quite similar. Obviously, the assist, Halliburton's going to benefit. He's just a way better playmaker and passer. Jalen Brunson, his scoring output is what really, sets him apart from a lot of the point guards out there, especially late in the season. I want to highlight this, okay? Jalen Brunson, over the last 20 games, averaging 33 points a game, 7 assists, and 3.4 rebounds. The rebounds is really not what I care for as much. It's the points and assists. Just boosting up. This guy playing at an All-NBA first-team level. Jalen Brunson, hats off to him. He definitely should be All-NBA this year, that's for sure. And hold up, we gotta talk about this. The scoring boom in the NBA once again in like that late December to early January pocket of the NBA season, the dead era, right? It almost seems like Adam Silver incentivizes the referees to basically allow these players to score and get fouls however they want to. It's almost like these guys are being told, yeah, go ahead and score as many points as possible because the NBA is gonna let you do it. This is the most dead time in the NBA season, and somehow these guys scored the most points, right? Luka scored 73. You had Cat score 60 as well. Embiid scored 70 that same day against the Spurs, I'm pretty sure. Devin Booker scored 60 and lost again. Curry scored 60 later on in the year, lost again. Jalen Brunson also scored 60 later in the year, lost again. Giannis also scored 60 earlier in the year. He was the first player, in fact, to score 60 points this season. I just want to put that out there in case anybody wants to know. Oh boy, Embiid. You could see here at 15 frames a second, basically. Look at how he gets hurt here. It's unfortunate, man. This is really the tough point of the season where you would see these injuries pile up, and Embiid would be a casualty earlier on in January. Actually, I think this was late January, so my mistake on that. Embiid's injury obviously cost him the MVP award, as we know. It did lead to him missing most of the season, if not all of it, except for the latter parts of the season where he did play a couple of games. But his MVP case was basically shut out the window because he didn't have the required number of games to play, right? And obviously, the same thing happened to Haliburton as well during this time where he ended up tearing his hamstring, it seemed like. And basically, it was a hamstring injury. Yeah, it looked bad, pretty bad.
Joel playing tonight felt very much so because of the 65-game limit. Well, I think it's actually quite bullshit. You get Joel, who comes out there tonight, and he forces it. I don't really bang with it. And now we got one of our premier faces in this league, the MVP of our league, possibly hurt.
Honestly, I see his point. I honestly see his point. The 65-game rule, it did have a factor in, when these guys come back from injury, right? Joel Embiid, even though he was hurt, he was able to play as well. So, he wanted to meet the 65-game requirement. And unfortunately, the casualty, right? He ended up getting hurt even more. And that just sucks. Haliburton, same thing, right? He gets hurt, but then comes back later in the season. And we'll talk more about that, stretch of games that he's played, right? He comes back and he tries to basically get his 65-game quota so that he can at least get the All-NBA nod, so that he can get his $260 million super max extension, basically his rookie max extension. That's essentially a super max at this point, bro. He's getting that money. He's trying to play those games so that he can get that money, that financial compensation, and that's really the basis of why these guys are playing. Honestly, if you look at the 65-game rule as a whole, it has led to players playing more games. It has. Overall, you could see the players clearly giving a damn and also clearly being more motivated to play more games. Anthony Davis this season played a career-high 76 games this season. I think I already pointed it out earlier in the video. Like, we've seen guys like Kawhi Leonard play more games. Zion played more games. I'm pretty sure he played the most games in his career as well. Close to 70, if not over 70. We had a lot of guys play more games because of this rule. So I think the rule overall worked. But the problem with the rule, obviously, is guys that are hurt, guys that are looking at the rule saying, oh, fuck, if I miss this many games, my money, my financial compensation won't be right. My awards won't be given to me, right? That's really the problem, right? Can the rule be basically flexible so that it doesn't include guys that are clearly hurt and basically guys that aren't ready to play but have to because, well, they want that award, they want that money. It sucks, but obviously that's something the NBA could look into as well. And I'll tell you what, man, DeAndre Ayton, for the most part, I think he's a loser. But even I have to say, why the hell are we making fun of this dude for not being able to travel because of the freaking ice on the road? That shit's not gonna melt because it's cold outside, not just that. But these motherfuckers could slip. The cars won't be able to be driven properly. That Ferrari, I'm pretty sure, doesn't have any winter tires. That shit about to slip. That shit is bound to get into a crash. DeAndre did the right thing. He knew, okay, yeah, I'm in no condition to drive to the game. I'm not going. I don't know why people made fun of him for it. Just because they hate him? I don't like him either. But even I can see, yeah, this is a very excusable reason for you to miss a game. Okay, you're smart for not trying to drive out there on these crazy conditions. Trust me, if you don't live out in the cold, you don't understand. It's not just the ice you have to worry about. It's those ice that you can't see, like the black ice. Those are the most dangerous ones, okay? If you know, you know.
Got a white boy on my roster. He be feeding me pasta and lobster.
I want you to look at this roster, right? The bench, the reserves, right? Mainly, not the captains, not the starters of this All-Star game. And tell me what's missing. Tell me what's missing that you think should have been an All-Star this season. I can name you a bunch, And most likely the players you're thinking of are all coming from the Western Conference. Most likely. Okay, most likely they're coming from the West. And that's because, well, there's no Sabonis and no Fox. Literally no Sacramento Kings an all-star this year. Like, look at these reserves. Karl-Anthony Towns made it, but Rudy Gobert didn't. Anthony Edwards obviously made it because, you know, his offensive impact in the game. He defensively has also carried himself well. Anthony Davis made it, right? Paul George, Kawhi, no Şengün. Şengün was playing awesome basketball. He didn't make it. And it took an injury replacement in the East for Scottie to make it, even though he was having a good season. There's so much talent in the league that a lot of these guys end up missing out on the, you know, playing the All-Star game. Obviously, the Booker and Curry made it. There was talk of Sabonis and Fox obviously not making it because it's just the Phoenix Suns, I think, had less wins than the Kings at this point of the season. And the Kings had no All-Stars, whilst the Suns had 2. The Lakers had 2 All-Stars. They had less wins than both teams, and they had 2 All-Stars. It's obviously a popularity contest, but you know, it's one of those things that just sucks to see. And it also just shows you how talented the league has become, man. It's so hard. It's really hard. Trae Young didn't make the All-Star game once again because his team's not good enough.
What's up, Doc?
You guys forget what we're running. Then we miss a shot and then nobody gets back. That's how we start out the third quarter. That tells you all you need to know about where our heads were. We had some guys here, we had some guys in Cabo.
Glenn got hired by the Bucks. He was doing his media commentary for ESPN, and all of a sudden, in a couple months, he was hired by the Bucks to be the coach. And honestly, I don't like it as a fan of Giannis, as a fan of the Bucks. I don't like this hire, and I hope he proves me wrong in the playoffs. But I just don't think this is gonna last. I don't think he's good enough for those big moments in playoffs to really, you know, carry you forward. When, you know, obviously a team needs to be adjusting to the schematics that other teams run. They need to adjust. Doc Rivers hasn't shown to be able to adjust in those moments. And the quotes. Look, people may think, oh, I'm just pointing out the quotes because I hate him. No, it's just a highlight that this dude doesn't take accountability. Every time there's a problem, he always defers. He says, oh, well, these guys didn't play good. I'm looking at everybody. He said this. He said, I'm noting what the bus driver does. The bus driver? Like, he's just driving the bus. What are you talking about? Like, why is the bus driver mentioned here? And I get it. He has the experience. 20 plus years coaching in the NBA. This guy is bound to get hired because of just how much experience he does. And it's up to Doc Rivers really to say, yeah, I don't want to coach anymore. So he's going to get hired as long as he wants to coach. So, you know what, man? I hope for the best because I root for Giannis to win championships. But, man, I'm just not liking this, bro. I'm not liking this one. Those jerseys look nice, but guess what, man? This trade deadline for the Mavs, man. W trade deadline. I'm not gonna lie to you. PJ Washington and Gafford. Now, PJ Washington himself, I mean, look, it's alright. You know, the trade you made, it's alright. You know, Daniel Gafford, it's alright. You got Richaun Holmes traded, you know, to get Daniel Gafford. You gave up a pick that you got from the Thunder. And at this point, you're like, you know, it's not bad. You know, this trade, you gave up Grant Williams, a guy that was already butting heads with other players. Yeah, people didn't like him in Dallas, so, you know, they had to ship him out. Seth Curry was basically a collateral, like a salary dump as well. First round pick, okay, here you go, Hornets. The Hornets, it's funny, man. The Hornets did a lot of trades. They basically cleaned house and they traded Gordon Hayward. They're like, you know what? Let's get rid of these big salaries, man. Let's get Trey Mann and Davis Bertans, albeit he does get paid a lot of money for what he's worth. But at least he's more expendable than a Gordon Hayward that's just sitting on the bench half the time, honestly, with injuries. And then this trade really boggled my mind. At first, I was like, Terry Rozier for Kyle Lowry in a pick? Really? What kind of trade is this? And then you waive Kyle Lowry. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, they're trying to save money. This is them trying to save money. This is them trying to, you know, basically have cap flexibility in the offseason. And I will say this, the Hornets had a better trade deadline than teams like the Bulls and the Warriors and even the Hawks. Oh my God. They had nothing. They did nothing. They literally, stood pat with these middling players. Not to say that these players aren't good on their own, but as a collective, these aren't good teams. They're not good enough to basically take you over the hump. There was a trade apparently that was going to be set for Zach LaVine to go to Detroit. He didn't want to go to Detroit, so he basically sabotaged the Bulls in return. It's really tough because, you know, the Warriors as well, they could have gotten Siakam. They could have traded for, I don't know if they could have traded for Lowry, but they could have traded just to get some better pieces around him. Klay Thompson's aging, right? He's just not as good as he used to be. Clearly not the same defender. DeRozan and LaVine, that's just not a tandem that works anymore. Vucevic, I mean, why the hell did you extend him? And obviously, he's just not good. He's just not a good stretch big. Like, just bad situations. The Hawks, meanwhile, What the hell were they thinking? Not trading anybody, bro. DeJounte Murray, you had interest from the Lakers. You don't pull something together. Like in the last 20 minutes of the trade deadline, right? The Raptors and the Hawks were basically in talks. And at this point, it seemed like a trade was being formulated. But the Hawks at the end of the day pulled out and saying, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing this. And they just basically said, no, we're reverting back. By the way, with the Bulls, there was a report that said that according to the rumors, the owners of the Bulls said, yeah, let's blow it up. Let's rebuild. It's time to fucking end this shit. And the front office, I think his name is AK. I don't know what his actual name, but his initials AK, basically came up to the owners and said, let's keep this roster. Let's keep this team around. Let's see if they can compete, right? Let's try to see if we can compete for the playoffs. What a dumb mistake. What a dumb mistake, bro.
He's a shooter.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play.
What else is there to say about this All-Star game other than the fact that it stinks? It really stinks. I don't want to say too much about it. It just stinks. The best part about the All-Star game was this event, the Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu. It was fun. Steph Curry ended up getting the last laugh, but Sabrina with 26 points. She had as many points in the three-point contest as the winner of the contest, Damian Lillard, had, okay? Just to illustrate you how great she is. I'm hoping to see Caitlin Clark next year included in this. Dame and Caitlin versus Steph and Sabrina. Yeah, let's set that up. Come on, bro. And I know going this long in the video without talking about the Celtics, it doesn't sound right because their season, they've had the best season out of any team. Best record, 64 wins. Not just that, they've been the most dominant team. Net rating wise, it's historical. Look at how much better they are. Even with their bench, look at how much better they are. You have 6 Celtics basically in the top 10 in net rating at one point in the season. These guys were basically, I guess, more impactful than any player. Like this team was so dominant. They were on pace and very close to, beating out a lot of these teams that were historically great, right? The Boston Celtics had a net rating that basically was third behind the Bulls of 96 and 97. The Bulls that won 10 straight, sorry, not 10 straight, 72 and 10, okay? And the Bulls that also won a championship the following year. That's how dominant their season was. Same thing with the Rockets. They had a nice, push for the play-in towards the end of the season. 11 straight wins. It was beautiful. Jalen Green, man, he was a big part of this. He was winning 11 straight. He was putting up numbers like 34 points a game in like a 5-game stretch to where you were thinking, is this why they selected him number 2? Oh my God, Jalen Green. Oh my God. It was just, people were so excited to see this.
I'm even seeing, I think McMahon and Windhorst said something about Sengun or Green. They're only speaking on if they can coexist and play at this level. The Rockets ain't trading nobody. But in a realistic sense of the world, if you have 2 players like this who can play at a high level and they're playing extremely high when one or the other isn't on the floor, or when they play together, somebody is falling off from their standard that they show that they can do, a move is going to be made.
I don't know if these guys should trade either one, but, if you're thinking about it, that means there might be a problem, if you're Rockets GM. But I don't think you should trade either one. I think you should keep them both. I don't think one is holding the other back. I just think really it's a matter of timing. It's a matter of play styles maybe. Maybe Jalen was just not accustomed to the offense being set up where Sengun was dominating the ball possessions or whatever. I think maybe, Jalen Green does need the ball more in his hands, and maybe they just need to, accommodate him more in the offense. Maybe that'll fix things. Who knows? But to trade them both or to trade one of them is very hasty, I feel like. The Rockets need to be very careful, with dealing with the situation, by just trading one of them, Unless you can get a very good package in return, I would advise against it. And the Mavs, the reason why this deadline was really a success is because of what they were able to do after the deadline. 22-9 record, the second best record after the deadline. Obviously the Celtics were just so good this season, right? They had a great season. And if you look at the Eastern Conference, right, you got the Celtics #1 basically, and you get a bunch of West teams. The West was going crazy this year. They were winning games. The Orlando Magic are right there, right? They had 20-11 record. They ended the season on a very good note to where they got a top 5 seed. They were the 5th seed in the East, and they ended up making the playoffs. It was quite stellar. Great season for the Magic. These guys are rebuilding. Paolo, not enough attention is being given to that guy, okay? People need to talk more about this dude. This dude has been putting on a show. I'm glad he got the All-Star bid as well. Finally, man. We get to see more of Paolo in the playoffs. We get to see more of this Magic team. Obviously, they got some things to work on, especially on offense. But defensively, I think they were second, if not top 5 in defensive rating this season. And, that's really their benchmark. That's their hallmark as a team. It's really nice. Okay, Jazz fans, don't hate me if I sound like a casual, okay? Because I probably am when it comes to your team. What the hell is the plan for the Jazz franchise? What the hell are they doing? I don't understand why, you know, they're talking about trading Lowry, but then they're not gonna trade anybody. They trade Kelly Oubre and Bruce Brown, not Bruce Brown, sorry. Kelly Oubre and Ochai Agbaji, right? They trade them to try to basically tank for a higher pick. Is the plan just to keep tanking? Like, I'm confused. You had a good stretch of games in January where you were beating teams, you were demolishing teams. You were like, oh, is this team a playoff team, a play-in team potentially? And then Danny Ainge, I guess, advises the teams, you know, pull the plug on this shit. You know, he pulls the plug. The team does, and now they're basically in free fall and tanking. You know, Simone Fontecchio gets traded as well. I'm pretty sure they traded somebody else as well. Bro, I don't understand what the plan is. I really don't. You still have Lowry on the team, right? Walker Kessler had a down year as well, I will say. So it's not like the team wasn't, you know, regressed in a way, you know. But still, you had some good stretch of games, but then you just pulled the plug on it for some reason. And then I just don't get it. I don't understand it. But at the end of the day, though, I think they'll still be fine. I think the Jazz are still fine. For them to have had a great stretch of games is a good thing, and it's promising to their future, right? You can't say the same thing about, you know, a Nets team that is basically in free fall as well. In the Eastern Conference, they're 12th. I'm pretty sure in the West they'd be like fucking 14th in the West or some shit. Like they'd be bad. Like they're terrible, man. Okay, newsflash, they're terrible. And what is their future? Mikal Bridges and role players? Mikal Bridges is a role player himself. We've seen him regress to where he's not averaging 27 points a game after the trade deadline anymore. He's averaging what, like less than 20 or just above 20? Like I don't know what the plan is for the Nets. Like if they think Bridges is going to be their number one guy. Actually, I think I know what the plan is. They have the same delusion they had years ago when they actually had a future that they can attract stars in their team, right? What happened when you attracted those stars? You have to placate to their demands. Okay, depending on the stars you can have some very eccentric ones. And, you know, they had two of the most eccentric ones in Kyrie and KD, demanding Harden. They get Harden. They get Steve Nash as coach as well because they you know, they're buddy with them. I have a whole video coming out about the Nets' downfall. It's going to come up very soon on the channel. It might have already came out, by the way. It might have already came out on the main channel. Go check it out. I think it's well worth your watch. Sean Marks, you're not doing a good job, buddy.
That's a bitch, but they know I be outside with.
Speaking of a team that's not doomed, the Spurs, and the reason for that is because they have Wemby. They have the number one pick. And not just that, look what he was able to do against, you know, marquee matchups. They said he was too scrawny. He was too skinny. He wouldn't be able to, you know, adjust to the NBA, be able to match up against bigs that were very physical and aggressive. Puts up 27 points, 9 rebounds, 5 blocks, 1 steals against Giannis. Plays less than 30 minutes in that game as well and puts up those numbers. Versus Rudy Gobert has 29 points, 9 rebounds, 4 blocks, 4 assists, 1 steal. He's playmaking too. His playmaking bag has increased. He's improved at such a level that is actually quite stunning. You know, even me that had high expectations of this dude did not see this coming. Anthony Davis, a very physical big that could play very good defense. The thing with Wemby, he didn't shy away from the moment. He doesn't shy away from moments. You know, when the bright lights are there, he doesn't shy away from it. That's the best thing about a rookie, a prospect. When you see them not shy away, actually embrace the moment and actually take on the challenges ahead. This guy is going to be, God willing, you know, health on his side, he's going to be a sensational player. He's going to be a star. This motherfucker had more blocks after the All-Star break than most teams in the NBA. This shit was crazy, bro. He was averaging 5 blocks a game after the All-Star break, bro. I'm not sure if that went down or up because just how prolific he was. This dude is going to be a problem for years to come. And this guy, I'm not joking when I say this. He's shooting the ball better. He might legit be a KD with AD level defense. His ceiling might be Kevin Durant level offensive player with a Rudy Gobert level defensive ceiling. What the fuck is going on, bro? How does the league even adjust to a person like this? You need to clone this guy. You need to clone him. That's the only way you could do it. And lastly, the MVP conversation this season. The MVP conversation that, you know, almost seemed to have, you know, gift wrapped this MVP to Jokic for months after Embiid got hurt. They gave it to Jokic. Jokic had the clear MVP from what it seemed like most of the season, right? After Embiid got hurt, it seemed like all eyes were on Jokic because he's consistently playing great, right? But it's because there's no drama behind his name. There's no narratives that are negative behind his name. He just won a championship. You look at Shea, he's too young, he's too inexperienced, but his team is just, oh my gosh, their team is so good. Jalen Williams, the coach. Look at Jokic's on-off numbers. His impact when guys aren't playing to their level. Jokic carries the team, right? That's the narrative behind Jokic. Giannis, a guy that I think is top 3, if not number 2 in MVP voting. He should be number 2, if anything. A guy like that is not going to get the respect or the nod for MVP because the narrative surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis wanted the coach fired or whatever, right? All this negative press about the Bucks and obviously the bad play, right? Doc Rivers comes in. Giannis had what I think is statistically the best season of his career, but because his team around him was just messy, there's a lot of dysfunction going on in the organization. Because of that, the perceived dysfunction of the Milwaukee Bucks from others is going to take away from what it was a great season from Giannis. Luka Doncic, he just doesn't have the wins. He didn't have a good team before the deadline. If he had that same Mavs team that he had at the deadline the whole season, he might have gotten the MVP. He might have had the record to match the Nuggets record, which would have obviously given Luka the edge because, well, his numbers are fucking insane. 34, 9, and 10. 34. Yeah, I'm giving the MVP to Luka. If I clearly see that his numbers are basically blowing Jokic's out of the water. Not just that, his record is basically the same. What are we doing? But Jokic, he had the wins. He had the win numbers. He had the record. He had the stats. He had the impact offensively. He had the advanced numbers on his side. Jokic had everything falling in line for him to win his first MVP. And honestly, that's not to take away anything that any of these players have done this season. That's simply to state how the media, how people outside of the media, even fans, looked at this MVP race as a whole. Really, that's what it is. And so yeah, that was everything we learned about the 2023-2024 season. The narratives, the things that we saw from this season, the notable things, the funny things, the wacky things, some things that were cool, some things that were, quite interesting. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I don't know if I'll make another video this long on this channel because it's the second channel. I'm not supposed to be working this hard on this channel, guys. Like, give me a break, bro. Still, have a great day. Peace out.